Today's guest has quite a background. She has done everything from business to skincare, even weight loss. And we're going to dive into all of this today. I know you are going to be fascinated with what you learn. I cannot wait to talk with my guest. Today, I have with me Lana Kerr. She is the founder and CEO of Luminesque. In 2015, she pioneered a skin rejuvenation method using CO2 lift, a gel that delivers carbon dioxide for rapid regeneration and anti-aging. She also developed CO2 Lift V, which I'm really excited to dive into this. It's for vulva and vaginal rejuvenation, enhancing lubrication and sensitivity, a topic that many women don't hear much about and is not often discussed. We're going to dive into it today. Lana, welcome to the program.
Carol, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to hear what we're going to talk about.
I think it's going to go a lot of different directions because I was reading through your background. I was like, wow, okay, there's business, there's skincare, you're an entrepreneur, and then you had a business or you founded your fat loss coach. Why
Yes.
don't we start there? How did you move from that to what you currently do?
Okay. Well, it even started before that because my educational background is in finance and accounting. So that's where I started my career in working. And I just kind of wanted to check that off because I've always wanted to have my own business. And I thought that was going to be important for me to segue into something that I wanted to do, which was really helping people to feel better about themselves. So I went back to school and studied nutrition and open weight loss clinics, which we named Your Fat Loss Coach, because it was a way that focused on just losing body fat. And, coming from Jamaica, where we can use the word fat, you can say to someone, oh, you're getting fat. There was no offense taken. Here in this country, I recognized very quickly that it was almost like another F word. So we decided to keep the name because it was just such a jolt, to people. Fat loss, oh my goodness. So yeah, so we had that business really was very successful. We've treated over 30,000 people through that business. We had several locations throughout Florida and loved it. And when people started to lose weight, feel better about themselves, they started wanting to take care of their skin. So I thought, well, let's open a med spa. And that's pretty much how we got into the skincare. So on opening this spa, we had an office for the weight loss inside of the spa, and then the other offices were for skincare. And then the other locations that we had, we closed down and we went virtual. So we changed the model. But looking for something that was going to be different or as unique or as really as successful as our weight loss system is what I was looking for. What can I do for skin that other people aren't doing? And that started our search to find something different and unique, and we came upon carboxy therapy.
I can't wait to hear what that involves. Now, when I was looking into your background, I was actually listening to a podcast you were on. Uh, was it HCG injections that were being? I thought
HCG.
that was interesting, especially right now with Ozempic and all of that being such a thing.
I know. It was, and at the time it was just, we were the first in the South Florida area to use HCG. And of course, it was very controversial. And I just think that one of the reasons why it hasn't really reached Ozempic status is just because there's not a way for the pharmaceutical companies to really make money on it. So it's HCG, as you know, it's FDA approved to treat reproductive issues, infertility, taken in large quantities. But really, when you take a small amount, it kind of tricks the body into really touching stored fat. That's that's really it. And people, when I was doing that, speaking to many medical doctors, it doesn't make sense. But guess what? We the proof is in the pudding, right? The proof of the pudding is in the eating. When all of our coaches, which we had almost 100 of them, all had to use HCG, whether they were slim in their mind or not, because we had to make sure that they understood what people were going to feel, but also too, even in people who were on the slimmer side, where they lost the weight was very different. They didn't lose muscle, they basically just lost like stomach fat. Like it actually sculpted a body in a very different way, very different from any other weight loss platform. And it really, that's, and when even Ozempic, we have the business still, just in a smaller scale. They were asking me about should we do it Ozempic. It's just that I don't really do anything or recommend anything that I wouldn't do myself.
Hmm.
So, and I don't like anything that keeps me on it forever. And I mean, there, so we don't need to talk necessarily about that, but I,
Hmm.
it's something that people are going to need to maintain. With HCG was a little different. Once you did the program, what we did also, you lost the fat very quickly, but what I think was a missing tool for other places that did it was they didn't teach people how to eat. It's, you have to change people's mindset on food and exercise and their lifestyle to support their new body. And then there's a kind of a, for every 1 pound that a person loses, they need to maintain it for 1 week. So 30 pounds, 30 weeks, you need to stay at that same level. So most people, when they started coming to us, had to commit to a year's program with us because we needed to make sure that they would maintain the results of that. And then if they did another HCG session, it was just a smaller amount, almost like a cleansing type of program.
Mm. It's really interesting. I love that you were focusing on the maintenance because that's something that's missing with most diets. It's like there's a destination and then people don't know what to do, whether they've been taking Ozempic or just, let's say, following a keto plan and they lose weight. They come off of that and there's no exit plan. It's like
Yeah,
they're just kind of dumped into life, and the majority will gain that weight back.
yeah,
So I think you really had something there, and really interesting. I didn't know that about the HCG shots for weight loss.
yes,
That was something that I learned. Very interesting. Now I want to talk about this carboxy. Am I saying that correctly?
correct. Carboxy
What
therapy.
what is that? What is carboxy therapy?
So it's the therapeutic use of carbon dioxide to regenerate the tissue. A very natural process takes place once the level or concentration of carbon dioxide changes in the blood. If you change the concentration of CO2 in the blood, it's going to change the pH, and it's going to make it very difficult for your body to transport oxygen. So it's going to unload, it's going to pick up the CO2 and unload the oxygen in the area from the blood into the tissue. That is going to help with so many different things. It's going to help with increasing microcirculation, with vasodilation, the actions that take place from that initial introduction of CO2 really helps to regenerate the tissues very quickly. So always the issue is how do you get the CO2 into the body? Now, the carboxy therapy is not new. It started way back. The Japanese samurai warriors would bathe in these carbonic hot springs because once you sit in carbonic water that's filled with infused with carbon dioxide, and in Japan they have these different hot springs, they have carbonic hot springs, it actually penetrates and starts that action. Then the French developed an injectable version where they take the can of CO2 gas, they put the needle in and they infuse that into the skin. That's can be very uncomfortable. It has downtime involved, but again, it's very good for the body. So now we have a gel that's doing the very same thing, which was developed in Japan, for which we have the exclusive license to that technology. Once you mix those two gels together, put it on the skin, whichever area you put it on, that action is going to take place. So what are you going to see? You're going to see immediately, you're going to see just brightness to the skin. You're going to see hydration. It increases hydration over 117% after one application. So just think about a cold, a glass of water for the skin. That's what you're going to feel when you put it on. But we know, because we've invested heavily in many clinical studies, that is what it's doing is improving the elasticity. We can actually know that it's improving 26% after only 6 applications, which is nothing does that. The hydration, which is very important in anti-aging, is 117%. Luminosity, reduction in wrinkles, we double digit in all of that from the application of a simple gel.
Wow, that is fascinating. Now, can you put this, is it just for the face? And now I know we're going to talk about the vaginal rejuvenation, but let's say somebody's going, okay, my legs are aging, and would it work on different areas of the body?
Most definitely, any part of the body. So we have, and it's funny because I never thought of it until I started seeing it in my own body. I'm like, okay, my
Yeah,
knees are looking a little like you don't think of it when you're younger, but
I
from the
know.
time I'm 53 now, but when after 50, I just noticed, oh, and then you notice your hands, and then you notice your declet. I mean, so I use a CO2 lift on all those areas, and it really my skin looks better now in my 50s than it did even in my 30s. Just the quality of my skin is has significantly improved, and the only difference really is the CO2 lift.
Now, how often is this a daily application?
So you do a series of six. So it's almost like a loading dose if you're talking about for the body, six within a month. And then you can maintain it with a monthly treatment. Now, I do it every week to 2 weeks, just simply for the fact that I recently, within the last 2 years, I was diagnosed with vitiligo. And so I can't do any kind of energy based device on my skin.
Hmm.
So I just do this. I do it once a week or at least every 2 weeks. And it keeps my skin really it, in premium condition.
And now this is something that you don't need a prescription or to
No.
go through a doctor for.
No. So we have two versions. We have the CO2 Lift Pro that is only sold by medical professionals. It's a slightly
Okay.
different formulation from the one that we sell on our website. You're going to get a great benefit with either of them. But obviously the Pro version is something that, it's I would say it's better. But however, with the CO2 Lift regular, we get a lot of great testimonials from those two that they've used that one even on diabetic ulcers, and we can close a non-healing diabetic ulcer within 8 days. So with four
Wow.
treatments
Wow.
we've done larger studies, and
Mhm.
we've done non-healing wounds that were for 8 months. And I mean, these are ugly wounds on the extremities of diabetics because of circulation is very hard to heal. And they applied the CO2 lift, the regular version, and they're getting the kind of results. Now in the study we used the pro, and we saw that within a month they closed, three a week for 4 weeks. So with 12 treatments, these wounds close and have remained closed.
Wow. And scars, I would imagine it would help scars as well.
When it helps scars, I think for scars, you definitely need to use another, like some type of laser device to break it up, the tissue. And then,
Hmm.
of course, then you get the oxygen from the CO2 lift. So the CO2 lift can be compared to a topical hyperbaric oxygen therapy. That's kind of what produce a similar action. HBO, hyperbaric, triggers the release of growth factors and stem cells. CO2 lift triggers the release of growth factors and stem cells. Both increase blood supply and oxygen to the tissue. So it can be compared, but the gel is something that you mix it, you put it on for 45 to 60 minutes, and you peel it off. As simple as that.
Oh, okay. So kind of like a peel off mask.
Yes, it's an innovative way to use a gel mask that people are familiar with to deliver something as crucial to us, our vitality, as carbon dioxide.
I was thinking as you were speaking, as women, as we go through that perimenopausal menopausal window, we lose estrogen. And
Mhm,
I just remember I was completely unprepared for what that loss of estrogen was going to do to my hair, my skin,
mhm.
so many different areas of the body, where we store body fat. But we just lose that elasticity, and then you combine that with the drop in collagen, and really the legs, the knees. I sympathize with that. I remember looking down at my knees, going, when did that
Yes,
happen? Like,
yes. Like when I was sleeping, it's like with the weight. It's funny because you say that because I remember when when I turned 50, we went to dinner that night and I put on 5 pounds the next morning, which never left. At 51, I went to dinner, put on 5 more, but that never left. I'm actually 15 pounds heavier. And it's like, what happens to the body? But yeah, so for the skin, I'm a big advocate of taking bioidenticals, but it still
mhm.
doesn't address everything. I mean, obviously it helps it, but we're, circulation is still slowing down. I mean, from the
Yes.
time we're 25, we start aging. We start going from that beautiful grape into that raisin. It's just we just shrivel up. We lose the water in our skin, that bounce, that elasticity, that collagen. So fortunately, there's technology today that helps to slow that process down.
Oh boy, I'm all on board. I do the HRT and have well, I'm 62. I've done it since age 51. I don't intend to go off, but I
Awesome.
agree. There's just certain things that it doesn't, you don't get that boost that you need, I guess you could say. And then you can take the collagen, and of course that helps, but it's still not enough because, that train's going forward with age, and you need to kind of hit it from all different vantage points.
Yes, you need to take the full arsenal and just fire. Yes.
I love it. The full arsenal. That's the words I was looking for.
You gotta go to a gunfight with a knife. You have to take a whole. And that's what aging is like. It's like a gunfight. We need to take more than that. We need to take some real good weapons to fight it, because aging is a disease. And I mean, as much as we like to get old, meaning we like to live longer, we don't want to look older. We don't want to feel what old age has been. Typically when people define old age as just dying, we want to preserve, and we can preserve it. So I'm not against getting older. Just let's get older and have the functionality that we have, because with more wisdom we should be able to do more things. And to be able to do more things, we need to be functioning youthfully. And then also too, I know that there's a dermatologist here, Shino Bay. He always talks about this study that was done. When people look at themselves and look in the mirror and see a youthful appearance, they act younger. You're going to act and how you perceive yourself to look. So why not make that look as youthful as we can, so that we can live vibrant lives older?
Yes, you're speaking my language. I always talk about this being the second and better half of life, but
Yes.
you got to be ready to show up. Like in all aspects, you have to feel good, and I think looking good is part of it because of the confidence.
Yes.
If you have that confidence, you're just going to function better in all areas of your life. And it's not vanity. It's just feeling good in your own skin.
Yes, very. That's what I believe. So that's kind of what the CO2 lift. So we use it. I mean, you're talking about aesthetic professionals use it, dermatologists use it for the skin, because it helps with so many different indications. Because if you look at the root cause of a lot of things, inflammation, and CO2 lift carboxy gets rid of, it's anti-inflammatory. Hydration is another thing that is a root of eczema, like different conditions. Well, this is giving hydration. So it's in elasticity, building the structure of the skin is what CO2 lift is great at. So those are the things. So we can think of it. Aesthetic professionals use it, dermatologists use it, plastic surgeons use it, because they want less complications, better outcome. They want better healing. And so, as great a work that they may do, if the person isn't healing properly, it's not going to show. So, it's going to prevent scars. So, we did talk about scars, but why not get it as you injure the skin, then you apply it to help it to heal quickly and easily, to prevent scars.
Yes, yes, it makes so much
Mm.
sense. And then also the hydration part of this, because you go and you buy these skincare products, and
Mhm.
number one ingredient is water, and then it might have a bunch of, I don't know, things you can't pronounce in there. And I have found sometimes it's drying my skin out instead
Mm.
of hydrating it.
Yeah.
And so I love the idea of the hydration because that's such an issue, after we go through perimenopause and menopause. And now I want to shift a little bit the vaginal rejuvenation, because I feel like this is a topic it's not talked about. And
Mhm.
nobody explained to me what happens as we age
Mhm.
and how that part of us can, actually atrophy.
Yes. So we're talking about the vulva and the vagina, right? So those are the two things. And I always say that the last conversation that most women or mothers have with their daughters is after just your period, the period talk, your cycle, and then
Hmm.
no other conversation is held, which is why when we reach to this age, we're both shocked. Even before this, I felt we were like, okay, I didn't know that this would happen. You think it's just a natural process that's taking
Right.
place. You don't even understand it. Um, but so just like the skin on our face ages, on our body age, our neck ages, our vulva, which is the outside, for those of you listening, the vagina is inside, right? And that comes with certain results, which would involve a reduction in sensitivity during sex because our clitoris is where it's you just see the tip of it on the vulva, but then all of it has legs. That requires blood flow to stay healthy and operating at its peak. And why I thought of the CO2 lift for that is because when I saw that it can close a non healing diabetic ulcer, and the problem, as we mentioned, with diabetics is circulation, blood flow to their extremities. That's why they're not healing. That's why the CO2 lift was able to heal them very quickly. I thought, well, what about blood flow there? How is it that we're getting blood flow there? Then in the vagina, that tissue is very similar to the tissue or the skin under our eyes, which is very thin. In fact, usually that's where shows age first because that skin is very thin. But that's just the skin under our vagina, so that's getting skin dry and thin. So it's going to feel that tissue is going to not be as pleasurable, when or even just operating in your life without sex. I'm talking about just feel that tissue eventually gets dry, and it's uncomfortable for women whether they're having sex or not. But so that's what made me think of that. So I approached one of my medical directors who is a cosmetic gynecologist and just talked to him, what do you think about using it there? Because I was experiencing this at this time. I was around 47 and I was already on bioidenticals. So even then I noticed a difference in the quality of how I felt during sexual intercourse. So anyway, went to him and he said, this would be great. So we did a pilot study which we replicated with a larger amount of women. And we just completed another one and we added the King's Health questionnaire, which measures bladder life. But what we found in a double blind study, meaning the patients didn't know if they're getting a placebo or the CO2 lift V. The women that got the placebo or the ultrasound gel showed no changes in sexual function. The women that got the CO2 lift V showed significant change in orgasm, lubrication, arousal, less pain in sex, just more satisfaction. Then in the bladder life questionnaire, huge improvement in bladder life. So when you cough and pee, that sort of thing, like stress incontinence, it was able to address. So we found, and then we did the biopsies. And the biopsies, so they did 10 treatments, the women, five, they took the weekend off and did another five. We did the biopsies and compared it. And that tissue, Carol, those women looked like they were in their 30s, just healthy, vibrant tissue. So the CO2 lift V is a great way for women, hormone free, to be able to regenerate the tissue for the vulva and the vagina.
So important because I think there's been this focus on male sexuality, with the female sexuality being perceived as we're not supposed to talk about it, or it's not as important as the male sexuality.
Mhm.
And that's beginning to change, which I'm glad to see. But just that quality of life, because I think, if we are having pain or we're not having sensation or it's, we're atrophying,
Yeah.
that's that's taking away from the quality of our lives.
Yes, for sure. I mean, the thing is that just speaking to that, though, even looking at how vaginal, when we talked about vaginal rejuvenation years ago, there's people you think surgical, because that's really where it is. Surgical, where they take, and years ago when they did vaginal rejuvenation, where they would do a vaginoplasty, right? Where
Mhm.
they just tighten the hole. Who are they thinking about in that part? Just the man, because once a man enters into a tight hole, he's going to get his pleasure. But the woman inside isn't feeling anything. Now they've changed where they do actually tighten the muscles inside the vaginal canal. But that's not rejuvenating the tissue. That's one aspect that needs to be done. I agree. But then we still need to think of this tissue quality, how it's going to lubricate. about the blood flow so that your clitoris can feel the sensation. All of those things are going to work together to have a more pleasurable sexual intercourse with your partner. Those are all important, and it's about the quality of our lives too.
Right. And we don't have to accept less or say this is a part of aging. I had a conversation with a woman not too long ago, and she's about 59. And she said, well, I'm not going to get married again. I'm divorced, so it doesn't matter. But I disagree with that because, as you had mentioned, that can be uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's going to come. She's going to face things later on that are going to where they'll bleed. Just even peeing and wiping, and you'll bleed.
Hmm.
Things that have nothing to do with sexual intercourse. You're talking about running or coughing and peeing, stress incontinence. I mean, it's still about healthy tissue. And yes, we're addressing, menopause right now, but even I've had some great stories of younger women just trying to get pregnant. We're talking about just circulation, blood flow to that area of our body. It's helping. We've had some great stories on women who have tried to get pregnant. Using this has changed their life. They're able to carry a pregnancy to term. We've seen in terms of painful periods. So the fact is, we're not even just talking about sex. We're talking about the health of our system down there, our sexual system. You know, we have a solution that's able to address it. Why not avail ourselves to it?
Right. If that technology is available to us, or the options, I should say, are available to us, why not take it? And you had mentioned the blood flow being very important. I had a gentleman on who does the hair restoration. He had said the same thing. Boy, you lose that circulation, that hair dies, the root dies. You're going to have issues, maybe along with hormonal issues. And then you think about how our body heals and how massage works and things such as that, or the fascia, working on the fascia to break up the fascia. All of that is to increase that circulation.
Yeah. In fact, we're doing a hair study now just to see for that reason, because many dermatologists are using the CO2 lift on the scalp. So, because it's blood supply. So we just want to do a clinical study to measure the increase in blood supply for the scalp. So yeah, but everything is about, this life is in the blood, right? So if we can increase the blood supply, increase circulation, we're going to feel better.
Yes, yes, so much better.
Mhm.
Um, Now, with you had mentioned how, okay, the vulva, we lose sensation. Can you talk a little bit about the atrophy of the clitoris?
Yeah. So that's when it starts to shrivel up, right? It starts to shrink. And so we're not going to have the same sensation. So if that's okay, so, when people think of the clitoris, they always just think of the tip that you're seeing right there. But as we
Right.
know, there's so much more to it. That's just like the tip of the iceberg. The average clitoris is about what, 5 inches? And that requires blood flow to stay healthy and operate and function optimally. So once that flow starts to slow down, that clitoris it can start to shrink or shrivel or atrophy. And what happens as a result of that, then you start losing your pleasure during sexual intercourse. It will take a longer time for it to get engorged, for a woman to get satisfied. So you think about, and I've said this before, but a man wouldn't have sex with a flaccid penis, right? He wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
really get
Right.
a lot of enjoyment from that. Well, so many of us as women are having sex with a flaccid clitoris. So
Mm.
that clitoris needs to stay healthy, become engorged, and you can do that when you keep the blood supply going, then that can take place in a shorter period of time, as opposed to as we get older, it just gets longer and longer for that to happen.
Now, what about time-wise? So is there a point of no return? So let's say they're listening to this podcast and they've experienced all of these things that you described, all of the signs of aging and atrophy and the hormonal shifts. Is there a point where it's too far gone?
I always say the earlier you catch something, the better, but still you can be able to address it. My mother was one. Before we launched the product, my mother was in her early 70s. and she was experiencing very painful sex. She described it as sandpaper. And after
Mm.
doing the CO2 lift, she said she went from sandpaper to butter. And she's not on bioidenticals because of other reasons. So you can still benefit and help yourself, even though, you've passed, you didn't start early. It's always better to start early in anything. I think who was talking, I was at some event. Oh, I think it was Corey Hartman was talking about something. He's a dermatologist in New Orleans or in Alabama. He said, you take a piece of paper and you crush it up. Even if you iron it out, it'll be smooth, but you'll still see some of the lines. But if you take the paper and you just keep the iron over it and prevent the creases, the paper is smoother. Well, that's just like any part of our body, including there. It's it's gonna be straight, but it's still better to do it before you start getting. We're gonna use the analogy of crushed up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's true of really everything from
Yes.
exercise to
Yes.
nutrition. The earlier we start, the better because it gets harder and harder. I call it turning the bus around.
Yes.
And so, if somebody is, for instance, they're insulin resistant and weight loss resistant and hunger hormones out of balance, takes a lot longer to get things going back the other direction. And so, it's always better to catch these things sooner for sure. Now, what about side effects? And there might not be any, but are there side effects to this treatment?
I know it's almost too good to be true because it hasn't. It's just really CO2, and no one is allergic to carbon dioxide. Once you're alive, we are breathing out carbon dioxide, breathing in oxygen and breathing out carbon dioxide. So no, there's no contraindications taking the CO2 lift, whether you're doing it for the face or for the V.
That's good to know.
Mhm.
And as far as the delivery method, is it the same as for the skin or is it a little bit different?
So it's the same delivery method, but just the application would be different. So we have first of all, the CO2 lift V is a little different from the CO2 lift because the pH is different. The pH for the V is about 4 to 4.5. So that's what you want to put in the vagina. But you have to, when you mix it, just similar to when you're doing the face. And Carol, I can't wait for us to send you some for you to try it. But once you mix it, you're going to pull it up in an applicator and then you insert it similar to a tampon in the vagina, 2/3 of the gel, and the last third you're going to put externally on the vulva to the perineum, and then you leave it on for 45 minutes, or you just simply can go to bed, put on a panty liner, panty, go to bed, wake up in the morning, and when you pee, it will plop out into the toilet, and then you can still take the same applicator and just put a little water, and it will just everything will come out. You put on a panty liner and go about your business. There's no downtime. So that's the difference with the face. The face, you leave it, you put it on, you peel it off after 45 minutes to an hour.
And then if a woman is using, because I know some women use the vaginal estrogen in addition to, say, the patch or the topical, are those two going to interfere at all?
No, so I do a vaginal estrogen sometimes. No, you just maintain it with once a month. So if a woman was going to do this, for her the 10 treatments that she would use as their loading dose, 5 to 10 treatments, she would do it. You wouldn't put on the estrogen until you remove the CO2 lift V, and then you put it on.
Okay, I see. So you kind of plan it out a little bit, so
Yes.
to speak. It,
Yes.
it sounds relatively simple and something that would be easy to implement. I'm thinking of this in terms of a whole lifestyle.
Mhm.
So, as women, we're, in that menopausal, postmenopausal window of time, and having your nutrition, your hydration in terms of water intake, your sleep, your stress management, supplements if you take them, the exercise, the training, and then adding this piece as a holistic approach. Is that kind of how you saw this?
It's
Um,
funny, Carol, as you're saying all this, I'm like, oh my God, we have to do so many things. Like, oh
I
my
know,
goodness,
and I had this list going in my head.
that's why I was smiling. But yeah, definitely it's a piece that we need to add. I mean, our vulva vagina is what gives us, I mean, first of all, we're created with clitoris for the sole purpose of pleasure. That's the only function it has, pleasure. So we why not take advantage of that? And that comes with so many good things for our body. When we have great orgasms, it builds up our immune system, it's a stress reliever, all the things that you talked about. It helps us to get better sleep. you know, so we want to take care of that area. Definitely something that we have neglected because no one has ever talked about it as a part of, we talk about taking care of our face, our neck, our knees. We kind of skipped out the middle part there. So now we
Yeah.
need to address it, so definitely. So I think that if I was starting if I had a daughter. I have two sons, but if I had a daughter, I would tell her by 25, I would tell her start using the CO2 LIFT. Just I would do she would just need a smaller loading dose, the 5, and then just once a month or once every 2 months, just to keep the blood flow and keep that area healthy. If you are starting later on, you're going to need the 10, and it's just as a standalone, because there are other treatments or devices that can be used, which are more energy based devices. Then you don't need 10. You can do 5, right? But if you're
Okay.
using as a standalone, 10 to over 2 weeks, and then one a month to maintain that. And you will keep that area functioning optimally. I'd say forever, but as long as you live, it'll be functioning because you're giving it what it needs. So that would be something that I would definitely encourage women to put as a part of their holistic care package for themselves.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my daughters as you were talking because I have a 25-year-old daughter and a 27-year-old daughter, one son, and he's the baby. But just sharing this with them because mothers haven't had these conversations with their girls, and so much of things for women are shrouded in shame.
Yes.
Menopause, for instance, we're finally having the conversations, like I
Mhm.
said, but there was a long time when I went through menopause, nobody talked about it. It was considered almost embarrassing to bring the
Yeah.
subject up.
Tell me, Carol, just how things have changed. I mean, you're talking about within the last few years, because I was invited to a segment on Today in Texas, and it was during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And this was back in as just 2018. And I remember the host said, I cannot use the word vagina on daytime TV.
Wow.
And I'm like, so how am I going to describe this? I was with a gynecologist who used it for women who had breast cancer and recovering from that. And she said, use the word pelvic. And then just last year, I was on Today in Vegas, and we talked about vagina, vulva, sex, daytime. It's funny how things have changed just in a short period of time, just because more and more women like yourself are having these necessary conversations, and are deshrouding or demystifying or deshaming something that's very natural. Sex, our sexual organs. That's why all of us are here. If we didn't have sex, people wouldn't be born. So it's a very natural part of life. And why is it that we don't talk about it?
Right, right. We need to have those open conversations. You're right. It has changed dramatically since, say, 2017, 2018, which is not that long ago. Now, I was thinking about kind of shifting gears again a little bit. Women who have had hysterectomies, they've had the partials, the fulls, the cervix removed, which often can affect pleasure. Is this something that can help them?
Yes, because when you have a hysterectomy, you're forcing your body into early menopause. So you're going to get the same effect. So this definitely can help them. For women who have had breast cancers or breast cancer and who won't take hormones because they just don't choose to,
Right.
this is something that they can use to mitigate the effects of the chemotherapy that has necessarily thinned that tissue and made it very painful to have sex. So they can use this as a way to get back their life in that area.
So good. So good. Now, what is on you talked about the hair restoration. What is on the horizon with all of this? Where do you think this is taking women?
Wow. You know, carboxy therapy is still such a very new category in skincare. And so really we're spending so much more time on education. So that's really our focus still. In terms of other products, I mean, the uses of CO2 lift are really endless. So many different indications. So many of them are opening up because our physicians who are having a case of this, and they're like, you know what, let me try the CO2 lift, and it's helping. So because of, it's almost like, I don't like to say steroids because that has a negative, but it's almost like you can use it for so many different things, right? But what we're doing later on this year, we're coming out with a body pack, because the package size, when you get it, you'll see they're smaller. It's really for the face, the neck. And even though they're using it on the body, you may have to use more than one. So we're just coming out with a body size, mostly for plastic surgeons who are using it on the body and they're covering larger areas. So that's one of the things we're focusing on. And something else for sexual health we're doing, but I don't want to say it yet until we come there, which is probably around the fourth quarter. I'll talk about it when everything is definitely happening. But right now, our focus is really educating women on what carboxy therapy is, or people on what carboxy therapy is, but certainly for women, the importance of it and the benefit it can give them, even for their vulva vaginal health.
Mm, so good. This has been fascinating because I really did not understand carboxy at all. And it's been enlightening to hear what it can do for women, what it can do for our quality of life, not just how we look, how we feel,
Mhm.
relationships, because I was thinking about that as well, would be improved. Because if we're in pain and there is no pleasure, a marriage or a partnership, it's going to suffer.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then also the relationship with yourself, the connection with yourself. I think those things is what this is addressing. Because sometimes, too, for just the mere act of taking care of this area of our body brings awareness to it, brings focus to it. And so we're going to be more intentional for even initiating sexual intercourse with our partner, because that's an important part of a relationship. And if things are not feeling good, we're not going to want to do it. Whereas if it's, we're expecting sex to be pleasurable, we're going to be excited and put more imagination and attention around it. And that's what we're doing. In addition to solving the physiological um, issues that take place with aging down there, we're also addressing the emotional connection that we have to ourselves.
Intimacy is such an important part of a relationship. I've been married 36 years, been with my husband almost 37.
Oh,
And yeah, it really is part of, I mean, it's not the only thing, obviously,
yes.
but it is part of the glue that can bring two people together.
Definitely. Congratulations on that, by the way. So
Thank you.
this year is 27 for me. But yes,
Oh,
for sure. That was, in fact, that was part of the advice my mom gave. She said when I got married, she says, to keep your husband, you want to feed him every day and give him sex every day. That was her advice. So
that's
I agree. It's
funny.
definitely a clue. But it's more than that. I mean, I obviously it's more than that, as she said it in jest, but there was seriousness to it, because, and that's why I even had the conversation later on, that it's more than just something for him. It's about us. It's that bridge that you kind of cross together, and you connect with each other, and you connect with
Hmm.
yourself. So sexual intercourse is more than just an act that we do for our partner. It's really for our relationship and for us. And so we want to enjoy
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And I love how you use the word connection
it. Hmm.
to ourselves and then connection to our partners as well, because that's what it's all about as human beings is that feeling of connection.
Yes.
And now I want to be respectful of your time. So as we start to wrap up, first of all, was there anything that we didn't talk about you would like the listener to know? And then secondly, how can people get a hold of you, learn more about the product and what you do?
Carol, first of all, thank you so much again for having me. You're such a kind, and your
Oh,
spirit is
thank you.
so calm. So thank you for just
Oh,
conducting such a
thank you.
great interview discussion. So I really appreciate it. I think we covered basically everything. I just want to really emphasize that, this message is really for both men and women, but particularly for
Mhm.
women, because we tend to put ourselves on the back burner, that we really need to spend a little bit more time on ourselves, on not only our physical, like what we appear to the world as, but certainly, our sexual health is important. And there are things that we can do to address it. So this is something you can consider. I know that we're offering, Carol, your listeners a discount code for them to try it, the Carol 10, which you will talk about later on. But also, I can't wait for you to try it so you can tell them how you felt when you're going to get the face and the V. For us, you can reach us at co2lift.com. On Instagram, my personal Instagram is the Lana Kerr, which I always welcome questions. People DM me, and I'm very good at responding to that, as well as our CO2 Lift on Instagram, or CO2 Lift V. So those are ways that you can reach out, and I know our team is very good at responding as well.
Oh, Lana, thank you so much. And thank you for what you are doing for women. It's so important, and how candid you are, because that's what we need. We need these candid, open conversations. So thank you for your work. Thank you for being a guest today. I've truly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much, Carol.
And to our listeners, wherever you are in the world, we wish you every blessing. Bye for now.